All right, so now we're officially recording, which means class has already started. There's only two of you guys here, so only three of us now. This is actually a small class with only three of y'all. Amanda hasn't shown up, which is fine. I will make sure, that's why we're recording, to make sure she has a video. I don't think have I had either one of you in class before?
I was in business math.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wasn't in your business, Matt.
Yeah, I think Bob and I shared that course together, and I know that's a tough one. That's the one that always gives people a hard time. But you know, sometimes you just got to do it a couple of times. I know my daughter, I think she took college algebra twice at OSU. So, but that was because, with a math teacher as a dad, when she asked for help, what it ended up is me yelling at her and her crying, and then her yelling at me, and then it blows up, and then that's how it happens. That's how it happened all the way through junior high and high school as well. So I should have become used to it. So I'm gonna share.
I needed you as a dad. I needed you.
Oh, it was rough on both of us. It's just, but since let me share my screen here. Since I now live under her house, under her rules for a little while, that's the way it works, because it was about a month ago, we actually had a house fire and our house burnt down. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's all right. It happens. I got my wife and the dog out with about 5 minutes to spare. So
My goodness. Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
it was 4 a.m. Yeah, I was asleep. I think what woke me up was the fire had caused electricity to go out, and it got really quiet in the house, like ceiling fan went off, and it got really dark because like the hall light wasn't on or anything anymore. So that's what woke me up. So
Wow.
So this is business communications. Now, the point of this class is, let's see, we'll just read it right off here. It teaches the principles of writing letters, memoranda, and reports. Students will learn to use email and communication technology. This course also, talking about communicating. This course also emphasizes the communication skills of effective listening and speaking. Students will learn the fundamentals of effective business communication in oral, written, and electronic formats. Anyway, and we concentrate a lot on sending emails and sounding professional and doing that kind of stuff. Just the basics here. The home screen, okay, front air, here's a Zoom link. So this is, you can always get to the Zoom class from here. So if you don't have it in your email or you forget it, my information is here, which it gives you, tells you what my email is, my Facebook, gives you my office phone number, and then it gives you a text number. This is also text and call number. So if you really need to get a hold of me, that's the fastest way. If you just need me for whatever, the best thing is to email me, and I usually check those fairly often. Although depending on when it is, it may be a few hours before I get to them. Also on the homepage, you will find the latest recorded videos. You see week 1, 2, 3, and 4. I haven't erased the ones from last time, but it'll be the latest ones on here. I'll show you where to get to the other ones as well. And I was a big fan of Rocky and Bullwinkle when I was a kid. And so I don't know if you ever remember, they would do the title of the show, and then it'd be like, or the tree and the whatever. I don't remember any of them off the top of my head. So there was always 2 titles to the Rocky and Bullwinkle. So I always do one that is some weird movie quote or something, because that one's from The Matrix, that one's from Scott Pilgrim, then of course 300, and I don't remember which Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams. Thank you.
Field of Dreams, yeah.
So there we go. Let's look here. under modules. Now, there's one thing. All the Cengage stuff is done under the Applia platform. And Applia is kind of a pain in the butt to deal with because it only gives you one shot at each assignment. So once you finish that assignment, that's your grade. If you want another shot at it, all you have to do is tell me, but I have to go in, I have to delete the one you just did and then give you another shot. And there's no way around it. Bob, Brandy, and I have all looked everywhere on this single. Applia is just like that. So you can have more than you can do the same assignment more than once. It just is just an extra step in between, which is let me know so I can go in there and delete it. So if you're not happy with your score, just make sure you're happy with me deleting it, because that's the only way to get to it. First thing of week 1, let me go to our assignments. Okay, classroom attendance and participation. Of course, you ladies got that just for being here, so we don't have to worry about it. If you don't show up, you'll see that's the same link, and what you'll have is there'll be another link for today, which would be like the new one, and then you'll see the old one. I'll call them old and new, so you don't have to worry about that. So if you do miss a class, you go in there, do a 300-word synopsis of what the video was over, then you'll get your points. Oh, I forgot to delete these. There's discussions on week 2, 3, and 4. There's not one this week, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So what I figure is we will do the discussions during class, so you guys can get your participation points and your discussion points all in one shot on Mondays. So with a small class like this, we can actually do it, and we can talk about the videos and all the other stuff, and boom, boom, everybody gets the points, and we're all happy. The reason we don't have one for week 1 is we put this grammar and mechanics pre-course diagnostic. We have a bigger class. I don't tell everybody that, but do your best on it. But just so you know, as long as you complete it, you get all the points for it. Because this is just, like I said, a pre-course diagnostic. I just want to see where you're at, and I don't feel it's right to hit somebody, if they're just on a diagnostic. So just do it. It's a little long, and we can pull it up right now.
It's
Because when you come, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's lengthy.
It is lengthy. So, and I'm Shaquita and Sydney, I know you've probably done this before, but you can just go into assignments, find what's due. You'll see what day they're due. And this is due on the 15th, which is Wednesday. This one's due on Wednesday. This one's due on Sunday. This one's due on Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, until we get down to the end. Yes, ma'am.
So is this on Cengage or?
This is on Canvas. We're on Canvas right now.
Okay,
You can get to everything through Canvas. I said you go to find your home screen. And actually for y'all, it will look something like, let me change the view. Yours will look something like this. And then you just go to your assignments. Excuse me, I'm glad I got to mute that. That was horrible. And once you go to your assignments, when you click on the assignment, it'll take you to another screen, which gives you one more button.
okay.
That should pull up Cengage for you. Well, if it doesn't, you'll have to sign into Cengage with your email and everything else. If you have a problem with that, let me know. Hopefully you shouldn't. Okay. Because I am being a test student, let me get a test student mode.
It's okay, you'll have to, I understand.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to show you the quiz here, if I could get to it. Because like she said, it is quite lengthy. Gosh, it seems like it's taking forever to come up. So yeah, you're looking at
Okay,
14 parts. That's 5, 7, 8, 9, 17, 25, 32. So what's that? All the way to, I think it's 103 questions on there. And like I said, just do your best. This is not something, just do it and get the points. We can kind of evaluate where you're at from there. So that is, and like I said, that's the first two things due on Wednesday is that and your chapter 1 aptly assignment, which you'll find it the same way. And that's, if we handle this and the discussions all on Mondays, then this stuff should come pretty easy. Let me see, where else am I at? So back to the home screen. On here, I do put a couple extra things. 21 tips for online art, online courses. I don't usually like these kind of articles, but this one's actually a pretty good one. Read through it just so you can everybody knows these things, but just put them in a format where you read them and go, okay, hey, yeah, I should realize these are things I should be doing. Like treat studying like a job, make a study plan, manage time carefully, dedicated study blocks, all the stuff we already know, but it helps just to kind of put it in front of you. Eliminate distractions. Now for like find a quiet space, and what I always tell people is that depends on what kind of person you are. Some people have to have it. I used to have a business partner. She had to have it completely quiet for her to work. Any noise distracted her. Me, if it's too quiet, I get distracted. So I have to have something, it was like a podcast or some music or something playing in the background. Otherwise, I can't keep it straight. So, part of finding a quiet space is eliminate distractions. And sometimes the quiet is the distraction. Social media, stay off Facebook, take notes, browse intelligence. I'm trying to think of many that taking breaks is part of doing good work. You can only sit there and muscle through things for so long before you just become exhausted or mentally just not with it anymore. Don't, try to stay healthy. Don't be sick. And as someone who had COVID 3 times, let me tell you, it's no fun. And then if the 3 of you want to get together and do things kind of on the side as a study group, that's how I got through college. Study groups. 3, 4, 5 brains are better than one. Ask questions. I'm always here for questions. And then I always like the reward yourself part. So when I study, I always tell myself if I can sit down and I can finish whatever task, because I'm task oriented. I didn't do it on a time limit. Some people are like, well, I'll sit down for 30 minutes and do this, which is fine. I was already, if I finish this task, I'm going to get up and I'm going to be able to do a thing. I'm going to go have a coffee or, do something. Yep. I'm gonna go have a Reese's cups or something. So just something to make, reward myself. So that's always a pretty good article to read through. Now I'm going to start you off with, there'll be 2 Jordan Peterson videos this week. The first one is, I think it's just a really good video. He said it's titled, "Here's Why It's So Bloody Hard to Sit Down and Get Work Done." This doesn't really give you any answers, but it gives you a little bit of insight on why when you sit down to do homework, why it becomes so difficult. It's only like a 5-minute video. We'll watch that real quick, and then we'll talk a little bit more about a couple other things. And I got one more video, and then we should be getting out of here pretty quick because I can't think of anything we really need to cover with just so few of us here. I also need to share my sound. I don't forget to do that. Oh, and it's somebody's job to make sure I record every week because I'm forgetful. So somebody's always got to remind me, hey, Steve, make sure you're recording.
I recently joined forces with the Daily Wire. Your attention, for example, is mediated by unconscious forces. And you know that perfectly well. And this is another Freudian observation. You know, if you're sitting down to study, for example, your conscious intent is to study. But you know perfectly well that all sorts of distraction fantasies are going to enter the theater of your imagination non-stop and annoyingly. And there isn't really a lot you can do about that except maybe wait it out. You know, so you'll be sitting there reading and your attention will flicker away. You'll think about, I don't know, maybe you want to watch Jane the Virgin on Netflix or something like that. Or maybe it's time to have a peanut butter sandwich, or you should get the dust bunnies from out from underneath the bed, or it's time to go outside and have a cigarette, or maybe it's time for a cup of coffee. Or it's like all these subsystems in you that would like something aren't very happy just to sit there while you read this thing that you're actually bored by. And so they pop up and try to take control of your perceptions and your actions non-stop. Maybe you think, well, this is a stupid course anyways. Why do I have to read this damn paper? And what am I doing in university? And what's the point of life? It's like you can really get going if you're trying to avoid doing your homework. And then you might think, well, what is it in you that's trying to avoid? Because after all, you took the damn course and you told yourself to sit down. Why don't you listen? Well, because you're a mess. That's basically why. You haven't got control over yourself at all. And no more than I have control over this laptop. Okay, so there's the memory function of the unconscious, and there's the dissolutive function. That's an interesting one. The unconscious contains habits, once voluntary, now automatized, and dissociated elements of the personality, which may lead a parasitic existence. That's an interesting one. I would relate that more to procedural memory. You know, so what you've done is practice certain habits, whatever they might be. Let's call them bad habits. And you like those things to get under control, but you can't. So maybe when you're speaking, for example, you use like and you know, and you say a lot. And you've practiced that, so you're really good at it. And you'd like to stop it, but you don't get to, because you built that little machine right into your being, right? It's neurologically wired, and it's not under conscious control. And anything you practice becomes that. It becomes part of you, and that's another element of the unconscious, a different part. And then there's a creative part, which is that, well, you know, you're sitting around and maybe you're trying to write something, or maybe you want to produce a piece of art or a piece of music, or maybe you're just laying in bed dreaming, and you have all these weird ideas, and especially in dreams, it's like, where do those things come from? And even more strange, one of the things that's really weird about dreams, and almost impossibly weird, is that you're an observer in the dream. It's like a dream is something that happens to you. Well, you're dreaming it, theoretically, so how is it that you can be an observer? It's almost like you're watching a video game or a movie, but you're producing it, at least in principle, although the psychoanalysts would say, well, no, not exactly. Your ego isn't producing it. Your unconscious is producing it. It's a different thing. It's a different thing. And of course, Jung would say, well, it's deeper than that. The collective unconscious might be producing it. It's in some sense, it isn't you exactly, or it isn't the you that you think of when you think of you. And that's the ego from the Freudian perspective, the you that you identify with. That's the ego. And outside of that is the unconscious. The id, that's more the place of impulses. And you could think about those as the biological subsystems that can derail your thinking, right? And that govern things like hunger and sex and aggression and your basic instincts is another way of putting it. And it's a reasonable way of thinking about it, because these are subsystems that you share with animals. You share them certainly with mammals. You share most of them with reptiles. You share a lot of them with amphibians, and even going all the way down to crustaceans. There's commonality, for example, in the dominance hierarchy circuits. And so these are very, very old things. And the idea that you're in control of them is, well, you're not exactly in control of them. And I would say the less integrated you are, the less you're in control of them, and the more they're in control of you. And that can get really out of hand. You know, you can be like with people who have obsessive compulsive disorder, for example, which seems to be, I would say, the dissolutive elements in some sense of the unconscious, the way that it's portrayed here. Poor people with obsessive compulsive disorder, they can spend half their time doing things that they can't really control, and they have very strong impulses to do them. and it's very hard on them to block them. You know, they'll almost panic if those things are blocked. And then you have people with Tourette's syndrome, you know, that they'll be doing all sorts of weird dances and spouting off obscenities and imitating people without being able to control it, and sometimes a little bit of antipsychotic medication can dampen that down, but it's as if there are these autonomous semi-spirits inside of them that grip control over their behavior and make them do things. And you know, you find that to some degree in your own life, because maybe you've become very attracted to someone, even maybe you don't want to be attracted to the person, and then you find yourself, you know, texting them when you know perfectly well that you should be going to bed, and you know, you're in a grip of something, and you can't control it, and that's all part of the unconscious and all part of what Freud was studying.
When people are asked on surveys, what's the number one reason?
Nobody cares what he was asked on a survey. Let's stop it here. So anyway, one of the reasons I use him so much is he's this, especially in business communications, he's a super effective communicator. He has a way of getting to it that's fairly unique, but he is, if you can tell, completely Canadian. He's like super Canadian, says like a boot and things of that nature, which I think is hilarious. We did have Amanda drop in. Hi, Amanda. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Let me make sure I get you your points. Everybody gets their points real quick. Have I had you in class before? If you can remind me.
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, what you missed will be up on the video probably first thing in the morning. So, but basically what we've gone over is I will cover just a little bit over again, which is there is a diagnostic due. I make sure that if you complete it, you just get all of your points for it, because it's not fair to just you know, start somebody out harshly with a diagnostic test. Then, since there's so few of us on week 2, 3, and 4, we will go ahead and cover the discussions while we're here. That way we can get the points for the discussions and for the attendance all at once, and it makes everybody's week much, much easier.
Okay.
Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Okay. We're really doing well on time here. Shaquita, Sydney, Amanda, does anybody have any questions before we continue? Nope.
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, so since this is a communications class, like I told them, you will probably get at least one Jordan Peterson video, sometimes 2 every week, just because I'm a complete fangirl of this guy. If I ever met him, I'd probably, you know, faint like I was at a Michael Jackson concert for us
So would
older
I.
types. Do what?
I said, so would I. I love him.
Oh, somebody else.
Yeah.
He's a very what's what I'm looking for? Divisive figure politically. But you know, that's not what we're here for. So
Right.
we kind of keep that out of the thing. So let's go ahead and watch this one, and then we can probably make short work of this class.
How you doing tonight, Dr. Peterson?
Not
Incredibly-
too bad. Pretty good question so
Good.
far. A little on the brutal side, I might say, but
I'm incredibly
good.
nervous to talk in front of you, because you've got to be one of the most formidable people that I've ever heard of or ever listened to or ever seen. So my question is, again, you're one of the best communicators that I've ever listened to. If I could be half as good at you, or at communicating as you are, I would be set. How can I teach myself to do that?
practice. You know, really, like, well, there's a couple of things. Helps to read a lot. It really helps to write. So if you want to make yourself articulate, which is a very good idea, then not only should you read, but you should write down what you think. And if you can do that a little bit every day, 15 minutes, maybe you could steal 15 minutes and do it every day. but if you do that for 10 years, you really straighten out your thinking. If you're going to speak effectively, you have to know way more than you're talking about, you know. So this is often difficult for beginning lecturers at university, because they'll do a lecture on a topic, but they only know as much as they're saying in the lecture, and they get kind of stuck to their notes because of it. But you want to know 10 times as much as you are saying in the lecture, and then you can specify a stepping path through it and elaborate with the other things that you know. But to do that, you have to do a lot of reading. But you also have to do a lot of reading, because that's where the synthesizing comes. So that's on the input side. And then on the output side, well, there's some techniques, let's say, is like if you're speaking in front of a group, you are not delivering a talk to a group. That's not what you're doing. The talk isn't a packaged thing that you present to a group. There isn't a group. There's a bunch of individuals, and you talk to them. So when I talk to a group, I always talk to people one at a time. And that makes it easier too, because you know how to talk to a person. It's like, can you talk to 1,000 people? Well, probably not, because it's too intimidating. But there isn't 1,000 people there. There's 1,000 individuals. And so you just look at an individual and you say something, and you can tell if they're engaged. They look confused, or they look interested, or they look angry, or they look bored, or maybe they're asleep, in which case you look at someone else. And they give you feedback about how you're doing. And so one thing is to have something to say, yeah, but the next thing is pay attention to who you're talking to. Because unless you're very badly socialized, and that seems unlikely in your case, because you present yourself at least moderately well, and well, I mean, I don't know you very well, but on first sight, you're doing fine. So the probability that if you pay attention to the of social skill will manifest itself is extremely high. And so you don't deliver a talk to an audience. That's a really bad way of thinking about it. You're actually engaged in a conversation with an audience. Even if they're not talking, they're nodding and shifting position and looking like this, and you can pull all that in and use it to govern the level at which you're addressing the entire audience. So the last thing I would say is, well, having the aim to be a good communicator is a good start. And you think, well, I could buttress that to some degree. Well, there isn't anything that you can possibly, this is the whole point of a liberal education, there isn't anything that you can possibly do that makes you more competent in everything you do than to learn how to communicate. I don't care if you're going to be a carpenter. I mean, being a carpenter, by the way, is very difficult, especially if you're a good carpenter. But if you're good at communicating as a carpenter, you're like 10 times better as a carpenter. So, and this is something that the liberal arts colleges, I think, I don't know if they've forgotten it, but they don't do a very good job of marketing. It's like, well, what's the use of a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Arts? It's like, well, you can think, you can write, you can speak, you've read something. It's like the economic value of that is incalculable. The people that I've watched in my life who've been spectacularly successful they have skills. Clearly, that's a minimum precondition. But they're also very, very good at articulating themselves. And so whenever they negotiate, they're successful. Well, that's kind of like the definition of success in life, right? You negotiate and it doesn't mean you win. Because if you're a good negotiator, if you're a really good negotiator, everybody walks away from the negotiation thrilled. And so then people line up to do things with you. So, and that's all dependent on your ability to communicate. So practice.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I just love that guy. He just, he kind of lays it out there. And as somebody who's, given talks, between 3 people and 3,000, I'll tell you, one of the most daunting things is to try to, talk to like you 3. I'd rather talk to 300 people than just 3 people. It's when it's really personal and you're really trying to engage people, it seems more difficult, at least for me. You know, a few weeks ago, I gave a talk at the local NAACP, and then that weekend I had to go give a speech at one of the local churches. And like I said, you know, the smaller the group for me, it seems to be a little more difficult. So, you know, if there's 20, 30, 40 people in the room, that's what I prefer. So, you know, don't get intimidated, because like you said, you're having a conversation with the audience. You're not, you know, trying to give a speech, and people can tell the difference. And usually what I tell people is you need a few skills, basic skills. And this is for, you know, younger people like Sydney here. I'm gonna pick on her because I think she's like 12. Yeah, but you need to be able to communicate effectively, you know, or verbally and in written form. You know, emails are just super important now because everybody communicates by email. You need to be able to do basic math. All right, that's why we do business math. I know it's really daunting for a lot of people, and sometimes, but you know, it's fine. Shaquita's about to tell me how bad it was. Nope. Or did she freeze up?
I almost
I
choked
think one
myself
of us is
out.
freezing up.
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, you kind of froze up for a minute, but like I said, it could be my internet connection as well. But you know, basic math, being able to communicate effectively, and being able to manage your time, those things will turn into success no matter what you do. You know, time management is a hard one as well. I have a hard time with time management because, like you said, you know, in that first video, you know, you have all these other things, you know, creeping in on your thoughts and wanting to do other things. I don't know if it's Jane the Virgin, but you know, for a big nerd like me, it was the new Batman cartoon that just came out. But so you know, it's just whatever it is. Any questions or comments on any of that? Amanda, you doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're pretty much done. If anyone doesn't have any questions, comments, any issues, we can pick this up with discussion 2-1 next Monday at 6:30. So nothing so far. Well, I'll tell you what, I will, and what I did explain to him earlier, Amanda, was the class is officially started when we start recording. When I end the recording, that's when it's officially over. You can go ahead and bounce if you need to, or if you need to sit around and talk about something else, you know, you have questions that you want to address, you know, in front of everybody, however you want to handle that. You have questions about the class. I am more than happy to be here for that. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I am going to stop the recording.